Interesting. A record player that produces beautiful sound and pictures through my TV. What is it called? Ah, Magnavision. Gourmet video for people who know and love video. I see. The system consists of this Magnavision optical video disc player, a laser vision video disc, and my TV. This single wire. By connecting this wire to the antenna input on the TV set, the player becomes operable. At first glance, this player, Magnavision, gives the appearance of a highly stylized record player. However, I notice the absence of a stylus or needle, an optical laser scanner, and Magnavision was the first consumer product in our galaxy to use it. Now that is an entirely new dimension in entertainment.
Just what you are.
Welcome to the Cinematic Void Podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me as always is...
Oh, you can't use your podcast voice when I'm testing the volume, Jim? Jesus. Now you're talking to the mic like a person?
God damn it.
Seriously, dude.
It's normal.
I've been trying to test the mic the whole time. I'm like, why is it this way? And now, hey, it's Nick Vance, Parent Futures on social media. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. If you want to support the Void, you should probably consider joining our Patreon. What's going on, Jim? I feel like we podcast so much now that we don't even have anything to talk about.
We actually don't. I mean, when we were like once a month or whatever.
Or at least, I mean, more so, in our personal lives.
Yeah.
Not so much like, we could fit, there's a billion things we could talk about if we're talking about film culture.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's been a quiet week, so we're just going to go ahead and jump into the topic. We teased this in the last episode. We're going to talk about, I would say Blu-ray, but let's just say physical media kind of collecting and for me, kind of a little bit of Burnout, because as we're going to talk about, things that, have changed in the collecting of movie culture. That's kind of like, it actually kind of mirrors what's going on with vinyl and records now in a way that it wasn't before. Actually, bigger point, what I feel like's happening now with Blu-rays and like the 4K disc and the slipcovers and all that shit reminds me of the 90s comic book boom. Because you remember when all those comic books had like foil covers or die cut covers and like all this fancy shit to sell more. So we're going to just kind of look at where things are now, because I've seen online and various places people's thoughts on it. And part of this is also inspired by the French Connection stuff we talked about, because a lot of people that like, this is why you own physical media and don't just have things on streaming kind of people, like think they're archivists, and like, we can get into why like that's maybe a little accurate but also very inaccurate. But I guess let's just talk about like, I have Blu-rays, you have Blu-rays, and you are very picky about what you get for Blu-ray, right?
I'd say that's fair. I go a little crazy sometimes, but yeah, I'm pretty picky. I try to maybe buy like one a week. Really, I try to keep it at I don't know. I try to, as a person who's always had that collector mentality, like with records and with anything. And maybe it started with baseball cards, Garbage Pail Kids, whatever the fuck, right? But yeah, now I sold all my records, and here I am buying Blu-rays. But yeah, I try to be picky just so that I don't amass. I mean, like, where am I gonna put them? I don't know. And they don't even fit on my shelf right. It gets on my fucking nerves. I need. I don't know. It's annoying. It's a little more annoying to collect than records were, I think. But
I mean,
I don't know. I'm glad when I was at my worst with collecting records, I was definitely coming home with between like 30 and 50 a week. Really, I mean, I worked at a record store, so it was like really easy to just come home with a ton. But yeah, I can't do that with Blu-rays, man.
I mean, for me, I collected records, obviously. I never had baseball cards. Definitely had Garbage Pail Kids. Trying to think of other stuff. It was but I had VHS, had a ton of VHS for a while, got rid of that when DVDs came around. Was very resistant to moving on to Blu-ray for a long time. I adopted it way late. I think maybe like in the 2010s. I remember the first Blu-ray I bought when Shout Factory put out The Fog. I was like, all right, I don't know why The Fog was the thing that like made me want to get a Blu-ray and a Blu-ray player, but that was it. And I don't know. The thing that happened is like, you know, I probably had a problem and I was buying too much shit. And there's a collector mentality in it. And like I saw it kind of happen with vinyl and records where like, you know, when we used to buy records, like we're going to sound old saying this, they're like it was actually cheaper to get it on record than CD for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's not the case anymore. But, you know, I think color vinyl and like the things that like are now attached to a lot of records that make them collectible, I guess is happening to Blu-rays now, and like, you know, limited press runs, that kind of stuff. But, you know, I was buying a lot of Blu-rays, and, you know, a couple things happened. You know, one, I moved from where I was at, and I didn't have the space for a massive movie collection, so I got rid of half. Actually, I got rid of more than half. I probably got rid of like maybe 2/3.
Yeah, you definitely had a lot.
And but I was also buying stuff that, like, you know, I'm not going to name labels and all that because, like, I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging, but I would buy, like, you know, big packages of stuff. Like, oh, you have 4 releases? I guess I'll spend the $200 and get everything.
I'm assuming then at that point when you're buying that much stuff and you're buying those big box sets, I mean, there's probably quite a few things that you don't even end up watching. I'm assuming that that's something that maybe people do when they're just buying that many fucking you know. If I'm coming home with 30 records a week, maybe some of those don't get listened to.
Oh, definitely. And like when you start buying movies, it's like, oh, I just got another 4 or 5 movies, and then you just put them on your watch pile, and the watch pile really hasn't moved.
Yeah.
Because there's this thing, you got to have this thing, and then once you got, it's weird because I would get in times where like, man, I don't have anything to watch. Never mind, I had a fucking pile of movies that I had bought, and I'm just like, I didn't feel like watching any of this stuff. When I bought them, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I can't wait to watch this shit. But then the second I got them, I was like, yeah, not in the mood. Yeah. And it just would keep happening. And it wasn't only like getting movies and just not watching them, it was getting things that I really didn't want.
Well, you know, when you feel like you have to have this, isn't part of that just it's making sure that someone else doesn't?
In a way, it is, because when you see like limited edition slipcover, like hand numbered, or any of the bullshit that goes with like where Blu-rays are now, you're like, oh, I gotta be the first one to get it. It's like, oh, Mondo Macabro's got those red slipcovers, gotta get one of those, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just hit me that like I'm buying stuff and like,
Are you buying it to post on Instagram? You know what I mean? Like where's the clout coming from? What is it that you're trying to feed here?
I think it's just like,
and not just you. I mean, just in general. Like what's that mentality? Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I think there is a clout thing because I've definitely posted like shit I've gotten in the mail on the Cinematic Void Instagram or whatever and get fucking tons of likes.
Yeah.
So there is that clout aspect of it, but it's just like, I don't know, like moving out and moving from like 1,000 square foot fucking apartment to like basically 150 foot square studio is very sobering. And you just realize like, what am I going to do with all this shit?
Well, also, I mean, definitely coming from the record side of it, moving is something that will make you go like, fuck, I'm never doing this again. Let me just get rid of these fucking things.
Yeah, I mean, when I moved out to California now, like almost 13, 14 years ago now, we went to our friend Tony and celebrated summer. I sold a good portion of my collection. I think I might have sold you some records too.
Yeah, it's likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I gave you dibs on certain like power violence and grindcore records, and I took a shit ton to Tony. I sold almost all my CDs to Tony. Like Tony got everything.
Right on.
And I kept like 2 like you know, record, like, you know, those like steel protective cases. I kept 2 of them. And whatever fit in there is what was my record collection.
I remember you had those DJ cases.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Cool.
So that's what I moved out here with. And then, you know, when I first moved to LA, I went to Amoeba, and there was a period of time when I was buying records Because, like, so I'm going to backtrack here. So I had like thousands of fucking DVDs that I couldn't take with me because it was just stupid. So I left the cases behind, sorry, my parents, and got binders and just put the DVDs in the binders so it would have the majority of my movie collection. And just recently, like, back in April, I ended up throwing out most of those cases. I took some back and, like, I sold some of the stuff, but the other stuff, it's like, it's not going to be worth any money. And also, it's just like, it would cost more to ship it than what I would get for it. So I still have a bunch of DVDs and binders that don't have cases, and if I ever upgrade them, I'm just going to toss the disc because that's just what it is. But, like, when I moved out here, I had all these fucking records, and I made points like I'm not going to buy DVDs or Blu-rays when I first moved out here because, like, I have all the movies, and, like, it just, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it, but I kept buying records. Yeah. And then a few years ago, actually more than a few, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I got in really a financial tight spot, and I sold a bunch of my records. And I've sold a lot of my Blu-ray collection. Nothing has hurt more than the fucking records I've sold. And as a movie guy, that might seem strange to people, but it's like I have more of attachment to those records and songs and that kind of shit than, like, any fucking movie.
I've said before, I've worked at a record store for years, and there's just as a collector of many things, there's a big difference between Blu-rays and collecting records in terms of when it's time to sell your collection, dude. Like, fucking, records that I bought, either the price now of them have gone way up, which is kind of a problem due to, like, Discogs, and record collecting has gotten, like, super weird over the years, and so it's kind of become a burden. But anyway, the point is, records either, like, hold their value of what you already paid for them when you bought them initially, if it was like $20 or $30 when it first came out, or maybe even when you bought it used, like, you'll find that it's worth triple that now, a couple years later, or 5 years later, 10 years later, it's sought after. Whereas, I don't know, man, I found that, like, all the anytime I go to sell, like, any of the Criterions that I bought, surely, like, if I paid somewhere between 20 and 40 for them, I'm probably getting like $15 a piece, and that's selling to a individual. If I'm taking it to just, like, sell them in bulk at, like, Amoeba, or, like, a used, like, Blu-ray, like a rental spot or something, right? Like, you're not getting that. You might get, like, 5 a piece. So I don't know, man. Collecting shit is crazy, and I just don't. Again, I buy a lot. I buy way too many Blu-rays, but I know that I'm throwing money in a fucking hole. I'm really glad my record collection is gone.
Well,
I feel that, and there are a few things I'm sad about, but I think for the most part, I'm glad I was so attached. Like, the idea of getting rid of that record collection, like, 6 or 7 years ago, was insane. Mm-hmm. I never would have fucking done that. When I needed to, I basically sold my whole record collection and bought a car, which is sick. And and it's sick to have a car instead of those fucking records. Fuck those records, dude. I don't need them. And fuck these Blu-rays. I'm not attached to any of this shit anymore. I can't be. I'm maybe attached to some of my books and shit, but, like, at the same time, all that shit can go too. I don't know. That's how I feel lately. It's just, yeah, man, free flowing, dude. I fucking fuck all this shit. Who cares?
You gotta be able to just get up and fucking go in 30 seconds. Fuck it, turn your back on all of it. I mean,
what's that quote from? That fucking some movie says some shit like that.
Oh, it's Heat.
It's Heat.
Yeah, it's fucking it's De Niro's character in Heat.
Yeah.
Even now, I'm looking at, like, I still have 2 shelves of fucking movies, and I'm like, do I even need these?
Yeah.
And so I guess what's happened now, and, like, every Blu-ray label has, like, a monthly drop. And it's not just, like, a title. It's multiple. Or it's a box set. Or it's a lot. And it's just, like, there's people that, like, buy all of it.
Yeah.
And I don't fucking know how. Because that's, like...
I mean, I get it, man. I too thought I was building a fucking punk rock museum or some shit. I don't know. What the fuck did I think I was doing?
I mean,
like 3,000 records.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what I guess it's just like, it's an impulsive need to have something and feel like you have something that someone else doesn't have or only a few people have. I feel
it's a feeling of superiority.
Yeah.
I'm better than you because I have this record that you can never get.
Or I have this version of this Blu-ray, which comes up to.
I tell you what I am. As much as I'll talk shit, I am kind of mad that the fucking slipcover version of Irreversible was gone. Dude, it was gone before I even heard that there was a new version coming out. Shit pisses me off, and I wonder if me trying to tell everyone that they're idiots for collecting things is really just me being bitter because I didn't get this particular Blu-ray I wanted.
I mean, I didn't even normally this is through a Vinegar Syndrome partner label, Altered Innocence, and like I didn't even know it came out. Like normally, just like there's a big deal, and it was just gone. And like, yeah, they still have the standard edition. Your words was like, that sucks. I don't want the standard edition.
Yeah, I mean, dude, and you know what? So that's part of this, right? Like, I mostly buy Criterion, so I certainly have a solid handful of things that are Criterion that have like slipcovers and whatnot. But again, most of what I buy doesn't have slipcovers, and I never have to worry about like there's some limited version. It's just, it's just fucking Criterion releases. So I have a handful of things that have slipcovers that I bought semi-recently. And, when you take it out of the slipcover, the fucking artwork sucks. Like, it's like they do this shit on purpose. Like, only the slipcover looks cool, and the rest of it sucks ass. And that shit's annoying. So when I don't get the slipcover that I want for Irreversible, and like the regular cover is whack, like it's just like why? And it is a slipcover is fucking stupid, dude. It's stupid. I hate it.
But
I hate it.
But it's very highly contested now, and like it's just like there's people that will hit every time something comes out. They'll fucking buy the max they're allowed to buy, and they'll just sit and wait, and they'll fucking flip it on eBay.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like records. It's like all those Mondo posters and all that shit. It's just like this weird collector mentality that wasn't really into... I mean, Blu-ray collectors or movie collectors, they always collect shit. But it wasn't necessarily about like, oh, it comes in a slipcover. It's like, cool, I love this movie. I want to own a copy of it. Even if you're probably going to watch it maybe once and it's going to sit on a shelf or something like that. But it's just like there's this new collector mentality, and people like, it's like, what's more important, the cardboard case that your Blu-ray's in or the actual fucking movie? And honestly, it's just like...
We know the answer to that.
It's the piece of cardboard.
It's the piece of cardboard. But again, it's way superior to the art that they use for the rest of it. And... I mean, that's a fucking annoying sales tactic that they're using. I mean, I don't know, dude.
The thing is, like,
you want to sell them all.
When labels used to do like slipcovers, I remember when like it was just something. Like Shout Factory had slipcovers, but it was just like it was basically whatever the cover art was, and a cardboard thing, and some people threw them out or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like Vinegar Syndrome, when they started, who pretty much popularized like this fucking slipcover shit. They released a ton of shit not in slipcovers, and then they just started implementing it, and it just kind of took off. And like the thing is, when you put something in like this gorgeous fucking art, slipcover thing, like it could be a fucking C or D grade movie. Like, and I'm not talking about like as genre. I'm just saying the movie is fucking dog shit. And it's like literally you're polishing a turd by putting it in the slipcover. And like, oh, I gotta have this because of the slipcover. And it's like, the movie's not good. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, because they're trying to make money by selling it. And if putting a fucking $1 or $2 piece of fucking cardboard on it sells more units, of course you're gonna fucking do it. Yeah, it only makes sense. But like, they would have these packages where you just get everything they're releasing for that month. But then like, and then they also have their partner labels and all this stuff. So like at any given time, Vinegar Syndrome, between itself and its partner labels and its little even sub labels within it, putting out like, I don't know, like 10 plus fucking Blu-rays a month.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people that buy them all. And just like, I could never keep up with that. And I, even before I moved, I started getting selective, because it's like, wow, it's cheaper if I get all these things. So I guess I'll just get this other movie. And then it's just like, now I'm stuck with a movie I don't really fucking want.
Yeah.
Like, there was just a couple times, and it's just like, and then I'd watch things. It's like, well, I own it. I should give it a watch. And then it's just like, I don't like this. And then just like, it's like, I spent $30 on this.
Yeah.
I could have bought myself fucking bread or fucking bananas or whatever, I could have got groceries instead of like.
I mean, I like to, I try to be a little more selective. Like I'll find a director I really like and just try to make sure I have all the Blu-rays from that particular director. Things like that.
Yeah.
Not just like because it exists, I have to buy it.
Well, I mean, that's definitely my shift. Like, since I've moved, I've probably bought like 4 or 5 Blu-rays tops.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that, like, either if I haven't seen, it really interests me, or it's something that it's a movie I really love. And, like, I've kept all my Giallo Blu-rays just because. And, like, but I didn't get the new Blade in the Dark 4K thing because, like, when it came out, I was like, I don't really want to spend $40 on this.
That's another point, comparing records to Blu-rays or to, physical film. With records, I know that there's not just like a new format that's going to come out that's going to make me want to rebuy every single fucking thing that I own.
Yeah.
And, that's going to make everything that I already own obsolete soon. You know what I mean? It's actually with records, if there's a repress, years later, it's always preferable to have the original version. Whereas here, it comes out on Blu-ray and you've already had the DVD. Well, it doesn't mean that the DVD being the original is ever going to be like worth more or sought after. It just kind of becomes a piece of junk.
Well, yeah.
So we're kind of seeing that now from Blu-ray to 4K, and everybody's making the jump, and you're starting to get those where every new thing that comes out has both the Blu-ray and the 4K. Things like that are happening. I don't know. It just, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, because like with records, like as you said, like yes, someone can do a reissue and they can make a deluxe package or whatever. But like if you already own the record and you own original first press, you're more likely to keep that. Whereas like, I know people that still have VHS collections, and like I've been on record. I think VHS was never a great format, but it was the format for many years. But I understand why people collect them because of the box art,
Mm-hmm.
And like there's something kind of cool about that. DVDs never really had like that. They as a format it looked better.
DVDs always look like shit, both the on screen and casing.
Yeah.
The cases. It was just never great.
And Blu-rays look good. And like I don't have a 4K player yet because I don't have a 4K TV.
Yeah.
And like I don't foresee me getting one anytime soon.
I gotta get a PS5 soon, so I'm gonna have that. I think they're 4K.
You're probably right.
So.
But the thing is, right now, at least for now, most labels are doing 4K with the Blu-ray, which kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think even though people were starting to buy 4K, it's not really a solidified market. Plus, when you go to places like Target or Walmart or whatever, they still sell DVDs. Like they'll have more DVDs than Blu-rays in their section because most regular non-collector like boutique label collecting people buy DVDs.
I mean, dude, go on Twitter and look around and find all the people saying like, who buys anything? Who buys any physical media? The most people think we're fucking absolutely insane.
And they're kind of not wrong. And like, because then the thing that
don't you have streaming?
Exactly. Now, streaming is actually part of the reason what kind of killed, like when streaming hit and it became big, it actually killed the DVD market. And by killing the DVD market, it actually changed how movies were going to be made, because there's a clip of Matt Damon on Hot Ones, and he actually explains what happened to like the mid-range kind of like, I don't want to say indie movies, but like, the more art house movies. Because what would happen was, they would spend anywhere from 20 to 50 million on like a smaller scale art house movie, and it might not do great in the box office, but it would sell a fuck ton of DVDs. But then once streaming came, the market changed. So because that money was there, it became like either your movies are micro budgeted or your big fucking like superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
So like streaming changed all that. And like the thing is like, well, I can just watch shit on streaming. The thing about streaming is streaming's curated and sometimes not very well curated because there's a whole world of film history that is not on your fucking streaming service. You can own 4 or 5 different streaming platforms and you will not be anywhere close to owning or being able to watch anything you want.
Yeah.
At least legally. We're going to pin that because this is something where people don't talk about. So a lot of people are like, well, I don't have to worry about it because I own it on Blu-ray or DVD or VHS. The problem with all those formats is they're not infinite products. They're not going to last forever. Their disc rot is real. And basically the shelf life of most DVDs and CDs and stuff is a decade.
Yeah.
And obviously there's things that last longer. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that have oh, I have this CD for 20 years and it still plays fine. That's cool, but that's not the norm. I can use this as a good example. I tried to watch my DVD of The Departed and it stopped working. It just would not play anymore. It wasn't scratched up or anything. It was just done. The disc was bad.
I mean, that's pretty, the amount of money I've spent on fucking Criterion Blu-rays, that's pretty fucking sad to think that I won't be able to watch them in 10 years.
I mean, that might not be the case. Some might just keep going or whatever, but it's just there's one of the most infamous things where Laserdisc had disc rot.
Mm-hmm.
The Criterion version of Crash on Laserdisc, the first version before they did the Blu-ray and stuff, it was pretty notorious for those discs having disc rot and just were unplayable. And that was the only place you had the Cronenberg commentary and stuff like that. So physical media is not going to last forever. You can say you're an archivist, but you're not the Library of Congress. Library of Congress is saving kind of master of film prints and audio recordings and stuff like that, and they have it in a secure vault, so it's trying to be a real archive.
Mm-hmm.
You owning a DVD, yeah, in a way you are, but there's one day you can pop in that disc or it doesn't work, or the format changes and your player stops working and you can't fucking play it. Right now, if you get a 4K player, you can at least play DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K on that. I'm sure a DVD will look like absolute shit on a 4K player on a 4K TV, but you can do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just one of the things I've also kind of avoided. Now, during the DVD era, I had a region-free player, which in case, I'm sure most of you know, but a region-free player basically means you can play any DVD from around the world because movies are typically region locked. US, Canada, I think was region 1, and then other countries was I think region 2, and you also have PAL format, which is the UK format. So there's a lot of things. But if you had a region free player, you can just play whatever the fuck you want, which was cool because I'd start buying movies that I had on VHS but hadn't hit DVD in America yet. And every single time I bought one of those discs, a month later it got announced for release in the United States. I remember I was getting all the David Cronenberg movies. I got The Brood, I got Naked Lunch, I got a bunch of stuff. And I was shit, yeah, I got all these region 2 discs. They're pointless in a month or less.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Which is why I have not got a region free Blu-ray player, because it's I'd be too tempted to get shit, and then I know the second I'd buy something that wasn't available here, it'd get announced.
I think that, I think that's fair though. They're just much better about spreading that stuff around now. They're not trying to. It's just nothing seems to be gate kept in that sort of way anymore. It may come out a little earlier in a different country, but you're gonna get it here pretty soon after. So that's I think you could just pretty much count on that these days.
Yeah, I mean there's a few exceptions. There's things that here are in legal limbo. There's
right
Fright Night Part 2, which I don't even know if it's an authorized Blu-ray over in Europe.
Sounds like you need a VPN. TriStar VPN.
TriStar. Oh yeah.
Just turn this into a VPN commercial. I don't know.
I mean, if you are a VPN company and would like to kick us some money, please sign up now. Anyway, but I mean, no, it's I don't think Fright Night 2 is on streaming. Someone's illegally ripped that fucking Blu-ray and put it on YouTube though, which kind of comes to the other thing about You know where most of this stuff is going to live that isn't in like an official archive, like, Library of Congress, or like if it's film prints. That's the other thing. It's like I have friends, know quite a few people who collect film prints and all that. And like, that's another aging format, but I feel like that's kind of the bigger baller move. You know what I mean? But, if you own anything pre-83, there's a chance if it's on Eastman, it's faded. The shit can go vinegar and it can fall apart, So it's like anything you collect, like even your records, if you play your record enough, you're going to wear the grooves and then it's not going to sound the same. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the problem with any analog format, really. Same with VHS. You play a VHS tape to death, it's going to fucking, lose its color, lose its tracking, get all not digital, but you know what I mean, like staticky at times. And obviously DVDs and Blu-rays and that doesn't do that. But again, discs can fail, discs can go bad. And at a certain point, it's just like, I don't know. So I'm not anti-streaming. I actually think streaming is pretty cool. And I mean, I wish like there was more variety, but like at the same time, it's like, streamers are only going to put up what they think people are going to watch and what's going to put up numbers, And that's kind of like the same mentality of boutique labels. They're going to, when a boutique label, like some labels like own the movies outright. Or some labels license a movie for 5 to 10 years. A lot of stuff Criterion puts out, like if they don't own it outright and they're doing like studio stuff from like Paramount or Sony or stuff like that, they probably have like a long year license, which isn't cheap. Mm-hmm. So they have 10 years to keep making discs and all that before it goes out of print. But like this, there's a calculated risk on how many Blu-rays you print up. Mm-hmm. And I think like, a lot of Blu-ray companies were doing like runs of like 2, 5, maybe 10,000 of stuff. But they weren't numbering them because it's just like they're just basing the average. What made it sell more is that like, oh, if we just put down what we would normally do as our 2,000 Blu-ray run or disc run, we make it a limited edition of 2,000 or 1,500 or whatever, it'll sell more. Even though the calculated risk is that they've, done some internal number crunching and realized, hey, we're probably only going to sell about this many copies anyway, so that's all we're going to get printed up.
Well, one thing I'm thinking of that is beneficial to something that is beneficial because of the physical media is that this stuff kind of funds the cleaning up of old archival materials and stuff like that, whereas this stuff would just be sitting in a vault somewhere and just rotting forever, so they're able to just grab it and clean it up, digitize it for future generations, whereas because this stuff, no matter how well you take care of a piece of film, eventually it's going to go away. Yeah. Eventually it doesn't exist anymore. So to be able to digitize this stuff and clean it up and all that is doing a huge service for us all.
No, and I 100% agree to that because
and I think that just creating the physical media is what funds those endeavors in the first place.
Yeah, I mean it's more the labels are archiving stuff, and like the labels, like if they own the negative to something, like they're gonna protect that negative, and like they're only gonna they'll have it to go scan because the best source to do a scan is always gonna be a negative. But
but even that again is going to eventually waste away.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like you gotta think anything that's on nitrate, like nitrate. I'm surprised there's still nitrate prints left because like it's just by the nature of that format, it deteriorates.
Yep.
And like it's just like all that Eastman film stock that was used in like the 70s where all those film prints turned pink. Not all negatives are on that. Negatives are usually on like a low fade stock, but like you gotta think there was like a good period of time where like it wasn't until like the 80s that they stopped using it and started using low fade stock, so we would stop doing that. But even then film prints can still fade a little bit. But yeah, it's like the thing is like a lot of labels now own their own scanners and all that and do their own work. So it's like it I agree with you, it's funding like saving, preserving, and restoring films, which is fucking really important. And I think one of the flip side of it is like once you spend like tens of thousands of dollars on doing that, you need to have a return on it, otherwise you're just throwing your money away.
Right.
And I think that's the end game with it. It's like, the slipcover is just to get, if the slipcover makes someone buy something to help like make something break even or turn a profit on, having the rights, restoring all that stuff, I think it's worth it in the end. But, I'm just at the point where like I've gotten choosy in what I'm buying.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, what are we getting at here? I personally don't see anything wrong with collecting necessarily. I just hate when something sells out and I can't get the thing that I wanted. So that's kind of my main point here is just I'm upset. And, just like you, I am an avid collector and I am also completely insane.
Yeah, I mean, collecting, you have to be insane to collect shit. Because, like, at the end of the day, it's like you have all this stuff, but then what happens to it when you're dead?
Fucking bury me with all this shit, bro.
I mean, I guess it's biodegradable.
Just dig a big-ass hole and fucking push my whole apartment into it.
Just pile the fucking Criterion discs on there. But going back to what you were saying about the restoring and the scans and all that stuff, here's something that's very interesting, and like I don't think the labels really promote this part, but like they also license their scans to streaming services. Mm-hmm. Like Shudder had like all their scans that go on Blu-rays and shit like that and 4Ks. Those exact same scans are being what's streamed on Shudder or like anything like that, because that's another revenue stream for them. So it's like it's a means to end. Like you need both because like. It's like right now we're in probably the biggest boom for the Blu-rays. It's kind of like where it was like when Anchor Bay and all that shit was popping. But like I also feel like there's probably an implosion coming at some point. It's like, what's going to be the point where what gets released that people get pissed off and say, fuck this, I'm not buying this anymore. Mm-hmm. But like it always happens, There was a point where people like clearly they like, I don't know if it's a new format or just people just like get fatigued from it. And this is not to be a knock on any labels or whatever, but it's just like, at a certain point, when does like the quality over quantity kick in? Because I think there's plenty of labels that do quality work and like all they put out is like stellar shit. But then there's also like the fucking shotgun method of just putting out a ton of titles and, divide and conquer that way. Like, I don't know. And, if you're a collector, just, tell us your thoughts on it. Like, why do you collect? What is it about it? Like, is it really the slipcover that makes the movie for you? Or is it because you love the movie?
What happened to you in your youth and what void do you need filled that compels you to collect at such a high volume? What is wrong with you? You should go see a therapist.
Yes, we all should see a therapist. I'm
fine.
Not your Criterion collection does not say otherwise. I'm just kidding. I mean, I know you're kidding too, but like it, what is the impulse to collect? I guess even if you go to the primitive times, people probably collected stuff. There's cavemen collecting rocks or fucking skulls or fucking pelts or some shit.
It's called being a hoarder, and it's a disorder, and I'm rhyming.
Did you do that intentionally, or was that just completely on accident?
It just happened, man. I didn't like it either.
Oh man, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like I'm just at a point where like when fucking there's 40 new releases a month, I'm okay buying none. But if you're buying all 40, that's fine too. More power to you. That seems like it's like at least $3,000 a month. Like, I kind of want your job if you can afford that. And I'm not being facetious by saying that. It's like if you can comfortably live spending that much money on physical media, you gotta be doing okay, right?
Sick.
Or you're going into incredible debt, which I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm being a little facetious here, and I'm not trying to put anyone down because like I don't know, and it's just like I guess maybe because I had like a question of mortality and like space and all that, and just like someone told me, as I was moving and all that and I was getting rid of stuff, they're like, it's just stuff. It's like, yeah, there's cool stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just stuff. And what is the bigger meaning? Like, what does that stuff mean to you? And to me, at least right now in my life, the stuff means it's just shit my way. And as you said, or fucking paraphrase Robert De Niro from Heat, if you can't like get up and walk away from it at like any second, you know, I don't even know the context.
What was the point? Yeah, what's the context of that? I don't know. Never get attached to it. I don't know. Don't get attached to shit, bro.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's just like, you know, I mean, besides getting rid of Blu-rays, I got rid of books. You know how hard it is to fucking get rid of books?
Yes.
Yes,
I do.
Like
it's another thing I collect.
Yeah, it's the one that's the other part of physical media, which is like impossible. Like, you know, you can sell your records, you can sell your DVDs and Blu-rays. It is fucking hard to sell books.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, I guess like it's different. I mean, it's physical media. It's no different than a Blu-ray or a record, you know. It's just something you read. But I guess maybe because of the density and all that.
I mean, are you creating, you know, in your personal space, in your lair, in your home, in your apartment? Are you just creating like an external version of yourself? You know, you're just creating shelving of like books and Blu-rays that you love, and it's just like if someone just came by and looked at all this stuff, they would know who I am, man. I guess
that's what it is. Maybe it's just like, you know, you collect things that represent you. Or you collect things because you want to be the one to have it. Because if you don't have it, it's FOMO.
Just take all my fucking records and all my books and all my Blu-rays and feed it into fucking AI and then let that live on as me in the future. And if I do that, though, I mean, all the shit that I collect is so terrible that I would just be this monstrous fucking AI. So it's like, it's not really well, I don't know. Yeah, but on one hand, it's a kind of a reflection of who I am. I don't know, man. It's fucked. That would be fucked. Yeah, that's fucked.
I mean, you know, it's like you would think as someone that programs films that I should be constantly like watching and that kind of stuff. And I am, you know, well, not right now. I'm just watching fucking just wrestling crap at this point.
Yeah, dude, you had me on that Doink the Clown. I mean, we'll hit that on rewatch list, but yeah.
It's like, I mean, I think the other thing is it's as much as I love movies and I show a movie every week, I think just maybe that's part of my mentality is like maybe I'm just personally burned out from maybe not, I don't want to say movies in general, but just like it's a different ball game where you're just collecting and you're watching stuff, and then when you have to present it, and like, you know, I used to, my excuse for buying so many Blu-rays is like, well, I gotta watch stuff because I'm gonna try to find new things to screen in the theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, is that really real, or is that just like me just giving myself excuse to buy shit that, you know, might look cool but I don't actually need? But, you know, I'm only speaking for me personally, as Nick is only speaking for himself personally. And like, if you collect, it's fine, you know. It's just, and this is more of an existential crisis as podcast, or just something just to think about, because it's just like, I don't know, because like I just remember when vinyl became big, because like there was times where like, you know, I remember going to Amoeba and just like, oh, I can like find like this fucking used like Swans record or Husker Du record, and it would be there, and it wouldn't be that expensive. Now to buy a new LP, because that's mostly what's at Amoeba now. They don't really have a big used section anymore. I mean, I know they still have used records and that kind of stuff, but like it's primarily new releases or reissues, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I mean, a fucking record now costs like anywhere from like $25 to fucking $40 for just a single LP. And yeah, I get it. It's got like a nice cover and it's like color vinyl and all that shit. And I get it. You know, it's the collector mentality, but it's just like, I was thinking listen to that same record on streaming. And I'm probably more likely to listen to that record on streaming because I don't really sit down and like put records on when I'm at home or whatever, you know. I have a shitty little record player that I got, and I have listened to it, and it's been nice. I put on my jazz records and things like that. But it's just like, overall, it's just like, it's not where I'm at, because like most of the time I'm in the car or I'm going for a walk, and you know, that's when I'm listening to music. It's like when I'm at home, it's just like, I don't know, just a different mentality. And I guess it comes back to streaming because people always say like things cannot be on streaming, or like, because not everything's on streaming, and like things can get pulled off streaming or they can get changed on streaming. Case in point, French Connection and that alternate cut that we talked about in the last episode. However, and this is going to be the controversial part maybe for some people, it's like, where can I get access to music and stuff that isn't streaming online? Torrents and fucking rare files and all that shit is still out there. So everything that people act like don't exist does exist, maybe just not in the most legal manner. And that shit's never going to go away unless the internet goes away. So like, there's physical archives, and then there's internet, social media kind of archives where things are uploaded. Again, this is not legal shit and where you stand, but like, shit's out there, there's like, there's music I have because I rip my records. Like I had a record player that I could plug in my computer and rip MP3s of. I did that for a while, but it's like, back in the day, there was records that you couldn't find, but on the internet, people would post up fucking, rare files of shit that like, oh, it's this punk 7-inch that like I can't afford because it's $1,000 record, but someone put the fucking MP3s up there,
Yeah, dude, find that shit on a fucking blog spot. Why?
Yeah,
of course.
That's the other thing is just like,
Now everybody just now everything like that is also just on YouTube to listen to.
Yeah.
But I prefer to find the MP3s if possible, so that way when that YouTube link goes away, I still have it on my fucking hard drive over there.
Yeah, I have an Apple Music subscription, and my girlfriend gave me like a link to her Spotify, so I have, both streaming platforms, and there's shit that's not going to be ever on there. So I still have a hard drive of music, but at the same time, it's like, that hard drive fails, that's gone. It's like, at the end of the day, nothing is permanent. Everything will eventually fall apart. And
hell, dude, fucking film really hasn't even been around that long.
Yeah.
It's just, and we're going to try to preserve all this shit, but like, how long is any of this shit going to be around?
No,
if 500 years are people making films? It's an interesting thought.
No, that's a fair point. And it's just like, the world and technology is going to change.
What's AI? Oh, we're not going to be here, but AI will. What's AI going to be doing for art in 500 years? To entertain itself?
Probably nothing. Probably just creating like a fucking never-ending loop.
Yeah.
Just like eventually, now we're getting into nihilism and
like we're not going to be here in 5 years. Is that what I said?
Yeah, but
the human race will be gone in 5 years. That's my prediction.
Well, if anyone can find this podcast after that point, you could be like Nostradamus or be the fucking prophet of doom that called it, But the thing that at the end of the day, ultimately, if you collect shit and it makes you happy, and like, that's something that fulfills your life, that's awesome. Whether it's Blu-rays, VHS, records, fucking Fabergé eggs, Garbage Pail Kids, I don't know. Video games. Yeah, people
do like other things.
Yeah. I don't know why I threw in Fabergé eggs.
There are other things that people actually do collect.
Yeah,
like cars.
Well, that's true. There's just different levels of it. Like if you're collecting cars, like
you're
this
Jay Leno.
I guess you are Jay Leno or a fucking rap star or something like that. But like, I don't know. Or there's people who collect shoes. There's people that, I'm talking about like all those classic Nikes and stuff like that. There's people that anything can be collected, ultimately. And, I guess personally, like, I'm in between worlds of like, do I really need this shit? And like the same time is like, if I go out of my way and spend $30 on a Blu-ray of a movie that I may or may not actually ever watch, does it even matter? Or if I watch once, doesn't matter if I ever see it again. I have a copy on my shelf. It's like, yep, I have a copy on my shelf. If I ever want to watch it again, and then I die and I just never watch it and just sits on my shelf. I'm not saying I'm going to die, but I'm saying like, that's a real thing to think about because it's just, I don't know. Just crazy existential, if I could say that word. Just, I don't know.
You still didn't.
I know I didn't. Existential. There we go. Speaking proper English and saying words correctly, not my ballpark. But, I guess the bigger point is just like, as I've gotten older and the world's changing and stuff, it's just like I still like movies. And I'm going to always collect stuff because that's always been in me. And I'm, in different ways. But it's just the same time, it's just like, I don't want to feel like I have to have something. I want to own something. That's the difference for me. If I feel like, well, I have to have this so I can like be better than like the people that don't have it, I'm not going to get that shit. I'm only going to get shit that like I want, that matters to me, and fucking God forbid I'll watch more than once I put it on my shelf. So this is just a rambling discussion on Blu-ray collecting mentality and all that, just doing something a little different because like this has been on my mind, and this is just based on things I've seen people post online, people getting upset, oh, I didn't get this clear slipcover cover so I can see the Invisible Maniac cover turn the woman naked kind of thing, which they outrage over people like, I didn't pay $6 for this thing, I didn't know what it is kind of thing. I don't know. I think collecting can be good, and I think it can be bad. And I think like it can bring out the worst in people on top of it. But also it's like, it's a fun hobby. And just like at the end of the day, is it really that serious that you don't own Irreversible with that slipcover?
I think that someone should sell it to me at a reasonable price. I think that if you have something that I want, you should sell it to me at a reasonable price. And if I have something that you want, I'm better than you. And that's my final thought.
All right. Anyway, if you're still listening at this point, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, I'll be rewatch and listen here on the Cinematic Void podcast.
This is Pioneer Home Theater. With Laserdisc images 60% sharper than most VCRs, the world's leading AV receivers, speakers customized for home theater, and a big screen picture that's real as life. From the leaders in audio and video, home theater so advanced, you don't just watch it.
Renting video shouldn't be a game of skill or luck, and it's not. At Home Video Express, you'll find over 10,000 videos, including a huge selection of current releases, plus one-day advance reservations and the fastest, friendliest service. So don't worry about missing the movie you want. Check it out. Plus, look in this month's Tacoma News Tribune for coupons that'll get you a year of free movie rentals. And be sure to visit Tacoma's newest superstore at 64th and Pacific during the grand opening celebration October 10th through the 17th.
Welcome back. It's now time for on the Cinematic Void podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to since the last time we recorded a podcast. All right, Nick, it's only been a week. What have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
I've been reading a book called Overlook by Matt McCusker, the stand-up comedian, and it is actually a fictional book about living in Philadelphia, which is where he's from, I believe. So I don't know. It's fiction, but I think I think he's secretly the main character here. But yeah, it's a cool book so far, just about living in the slums of Philadelphia. Just it kind of feels like being back home. I haven't watched it except for the Doink the Clown episode of Dark Side of the Ring, and maybe a little bit of the I forget the guy's name. Fucking some Edward something.
Oh, was it the Grizzly Smith one you were watching, or was it a different one?
The Grizzly Smith. No, I've never heard of that in my life, actually.
Dude,
no.
that Grizzly Smith was Jake the Snake Roberts' dad.
Really?
And that story is fucked.
Grizzly Smith.
Yeah, fuck.
Dude, he would come to the ring with a bear, and when you lost, he would unleash the bear on you.
No. It's like the shit he did to his kids and all. It's fucked.
I haven't watched it except for that Doink the Clown episode, but it's really great. I didn't know that much about Doink the Clown. I didn't know that it was multiple people, and I didn't know that there was one particularly notorious Doink. All very interesting. And that's it for watch. Listen, So I've been listening to all the Wire singles that are on streaming. There's actually a ton of like pre Pink Flag era Wire, and then a little into the Pink Flag, and even a little beyond of just like great singles and B-sides. Some of those singles are like different versions that actually ended up on Pink Flag that I think are like cooler versions. Super worth checking out. And I still just been listening to Crime, that San Francisco's Doomed LP. I think there's just like a reissue of the like a crime collection of the singles, and then the LP. But that shit's fucking just rad and filthy punk from the 70s. And that's about it for me, man.
All right, Reed, I actually got something. I pulled out the book Cannibal Holocaust and the Savage Cinema of Ruggero Deodato. It's basically kind of a collection of interviews, and then like, you know, kind of like talking about the movies he made, and it's a couple interviews with him at different points of his career, plus obviously his filmography. Pulled it out just kind of right before screening House on the Edge of the Park. I've had that book for a while, and it's just sat on a shelf, you know, like the Blu-rays I don't watch. I have a bunch of books I have not read, so I pulled that one.
It's an expensive book.
Is it? Well, I guess
if it's the one I'm thinking of, I just know that there's like this giant Cannibal Holocaust book. It's like really tall.
Yeah, that's the book. I got it. I actually got it a couple years ago when Severin put out House on the Edge of the Park on Blu-ray for the first time, and it's signed by Deodato because he was still alive when it came out, and just like it's really good because he's definitely like an interesting guy who's got some fucking demons in him.
Right on.
Clearly, if you've seen his filmography. Watch, you already mentioned Dark Side of the Ring, that Doink the Clown episode about wrestler Matt Bourne, who was like kind of a big wrestler, and he came to WWF and kind of made that gimmick his own, and then like we just talked about personal demons. His personal demons got in his way, and just it's wild because as a kid I never realized that they replaced him.
Yeah.
Like, just never fucking knew. And then the fact he was like going to other like,
but then when he was in like ECW and shit, it's so sick.
Yeah, like that shit's fucking crazy because he's like deconstructing the fucking
yeah. And I actually had no clue he was ever part of ECW or any of that stuff, so that I thought that was really fucking cool.
And then like, you know, Vince McMahon trying to sue him for using like a gimmick he owns, and he's like, well, you owe me money. So Vince is like, fair enough. And just like they just dropped it and just let him keep doing fucking Doink.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's when I saw that there's a couple episodes coming up on this season that are just like, oh shit, I don't know, it's been really good so far. The only other thing I've really watched of note is my girlfriend Leslie and I had a virtual date night. We watched Renfield on Peacock.
Reinfeld,
yeah, Reinfeld, you know, Jerry Reinfeld, you know, Dracula's assistant, who also is a stand-up no, I mean, you know, Renfield is like, I think Cage is having a ball being Dracula. That's like the biggest selling point. It was fun. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen, not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's just like, it's 90 plus minutes.
Who directed that?
I forget the guy's name. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but I know Friend of the Void, Caroline Williams from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 has a little role in it, so it was kind of cool to see her pop up in it. Again, fun. You know, that's all I can say is just fun. Listen, there's some stuff, but what I've been listening to is that Heaven Ward record that you talked about in the last episode that can kind of been just, you know, putting it on from start to finish.
Cool.
Like, feels pretty good, and then kind of repeat like later in the day, not consecutively, but like definitely on heavy rotation. Heavy sleeper, those, I guess their last two EPs, Chime, which is the most recent one, and Alive and Well, which was the one right before that I kind of like a little bit better, but they're both pretty fucking sick. And I don't know if it's legit or not, speaking of streaming and all that, but like the band Grief's discography is now on streaming. There was, you know, Come to Grief and like things like that, because they were on like bigger like Century Media and like Southern Lord. That stuff's been out, but like they were on Pessimizer, which was the old kind of, how would you know, punk hardcore crust label that was run by Chris Elder of Despise You. I guess it was a split label between another label called Theologian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if Theologian still exists. Old California kind of punk hardcore labels. So Pessimizer hasn't existed in a long time, so I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see like those Grief records pop up. I mean, I already had them on my, hard drive and on my iTunes, but these seem a little better. They're not really remastered. I'm pretty sure whatever fucking waveforms they had is what's uploaded. I mean, again, could be not legit and it could be gone within a fucking week when someone's like, hey, that's not your music, whatever. But I don't know, been throwing on those tracks. Yeah, that's what I've been reading, watching, and listening to. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Cinematic Void Podcast. If you're a Blu-ray collector or if you're just an avid streamer, tell us what you think. Where do you stand on the collecting mentality? We do want to know, because what we shared is just our personal opinion. And that's about it. We're not trying to, like, well, maybe Nick is. Nick wants someone to fucking sell him that irreversible with the slipcovers. So if you have one at a reasonable price, hit Nick up. But until next time, see you in the void.
Is all this exciting programming available now? Really? Super concerts by top entertainers? Blockbuster films, both current and vintage? Cooking lessons, documentaries, how to do a tennis, golf, swimming, and crafts? Cartoons, the arts, NFL football, interactive discs? All of them and more. And far less expensive than pre-recorded videotape.